Seeking life-changing knowledge? You stepped into the right place. Welcome to Bold Perspectives with Samantha Postman. In every episode, discover, explore, and grow your personal or professional self with real and relevant knowledge to help you improve your own life and make a positive impact in the world around you. Tune in for honest insights, life advice, inspirational wisdom, and the occasional salty rants. Because you are meant to live a better and bolder life.
Hey everyone, it's Samantha again with the Bold Perspectives podcast. We're in our third part of the conversation with Dr. Ayomide Adebayo, a psychiatrist friend of mine from Scotland who's originally from Nigeria. On today's show, we talk about the power of metaphors, dance as a culture differentiator. We talked about the cryptics of language, and then we go into different versions of you and healthy relationships. And after that, we drop into talking about tech, the power of drawing, and photography as a therapy, as well as culture and the heritage of language. So tune in today because we drop some knowledge bombs I think you're going to enjoy.
The games we play with ourselves, in terms of how we present ourselves to the world. And you talked earlier about like the fact that people are often talking to themselves. Yeah. And sometimes you happen to be the audience. Yeah. But not even the audience, because they're talking to themselves, but you happen to be in that space. You happen to be physically present, and then you insert yourself in and get hit by whatever they're throwing out. But it wasn't really directed at you. It's not really about you. They're just walking through their own emotional stuff. And I'm thinking about like just in terms of how this and how you navigate this, because obviously, like I've talked about dancing as like one of the ways I play those games, but how you deal with, and you talked about the whole thing of people, of success and how people will want to use it to pull you and turn it to like a leash.
Steer your ship, I said. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it got me thinking about games and the ways we play games. And there's this guy on Twitter, I don't know if you know him, Reddy. He's always talking a lot about play. And every time I think about play, I think of him.
About play?
And play, like just play as a way of engaging reality.
Right.
And I got thinking about the fact that, you can play to enjoy the game, or you can play to win.
Right.
And there's a thin line, right? Because I think that there's a level to which you can play to win, but it's really to enjoy. The winning just it adds stakes to it.
Yeah.
But like the winning it's not like if you lose, it's just like, oh, I lost, let's play again.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like I lost, this is horrible. I must win, I must keep playing. I was like, no, like, do you get what I mean? And like, if you feel like that comes into this in some way, and I guess that's why I like the dance metaphor, because I feel like that makes it like, that focuses more a bit on the enjoying part.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think the dance metaphor works really well for you because you are from a culture where dance is a huge part of your culture. So you have a visualization of it. So it's very easy for you to see a body moving, compared to somebody else, or how other people's move, or the rhythm of a room, or the audio, or the people involved. So I think for what I would call Westerners, we wouldn't necessarily think of that metaphor as quickly, because I don't know if you know this, but white people can't dance in general. I can say it because I'm white. But in general,
I've seen samples.
But in general, overall, I went to South America, and we were in Dominican for a while, and we were all lined up, and then the music's on, and I swear Latinos have like a hinge in their hip. And it just like, as the music's on in the background, it's just flipping. Man, I like I don't know, I can't do that. My shoulders and everything want to go.
I actually have a theory. About this. And I think so this is a whole rabbit trail, so I probably shouldn't go too far deep into it. But it goes back to, I think, I've written a little bit about it actually. I think that it's a disembodiment situation. So I don't think it's so much that white people can't dance as that there's something about Western thoughts that that views reality in a disembodied way.
Yeah.
So like, even for like something as basic as like prayer, for instance, like I grew up seeing people pray as a whole body experience.
Yeah.
Right. Not just standing and like sort of, and I don't think either is better. I'm just saying there's just a difference, right? Like, a lot of Western prayer, and even in Nigeria, like more sort of Western type churches, so like Anglican churches, right? That are sort of more, prayer is very sort of quiet and like, that's not how the rest of the people pray.
I know it's considered reverent.
Yeah, reverent. But you see, for us, it's more like, but it's not real. Right?
Oh man, we could have a whole conversation about this. Like, generally, European descent people, North Americans who come from Europe.
And I think it goes back to Descartes, right? And like separating the mind from the body, and like, I think, therefore I am. And so like my thinking is what defines me. Mm-hmm. And it's not me, like my body, and like even like the idea of like, I have this. But I mean, like even the things like we physicalize emotion. So for instance, when I was in Nigeria, nobody would come and say, well, not nobody. People who were Western exposed or educated would not normally come and say, I'm depressed. They would say, I'm not sleeping well, I'm not eating well. And then you would figure out that they were depressed, but they had all the symptoms of depression. It just wasn't how people would present it, right?
Yeah.
And then sort of more Western educated people would talk about like, oh, I'm depressed, I'm feeling unhappy, but that wasn't what like I'll never forget like this old lady I saw who was like, I don't know, 70s, 80s, I can't remember her age, but like quite elderly. And she wasn't even like, she couldn't speak English. So we had this conversation in Yoruba, and she said, which is language my name is from. And she said in Yoruba, but I'll say it in English, that, so initially she said she couldn't sleep well. And then when I realized, okay, she was depressed. And then I started asking her about, depression questions, and she, yes. She was thinking about dying. She was unhappy. And then I asked her about anhedonia, which is like loss of pleasure that you feel in depression. And I can't remember how I asked her, but I tried to sort of, obviously I didn't say anhedonia. I tried to ask if she was losing pleasure in life, and she was like, yes, doctor, that all the salt and sugar and honey is gone from her life. That was how she said it. And it's so, vivid and graphic. And it was such a perfect description of like, there's no flavor in my life anymore. Mm-hmm. Right? But she didn't say it like that. She said it in concrete sort of, which is sort of very culturally normal, like that sort of concrete metaphorical use of language.
But I think
it's not just saying my life is, I don't have pleasure. That's not how she was going to say it. She was like, no, there's no salt or sugar or honey in my life. It's how she would say, I don't feel pleasure. But it's the same thing, just like
it's so abstract. Rich. It's a very rich description.
Yeah.
But also I think that it serves a conversation better than what we have in like an English. It reminds me of like when we say I'm frustrated. Like when you said I'm depressed. Well, frustrated could be 100 different directions. It doesn't really say anything. And same with I'm depressed. Well, do you lack pleasure? Are you not sleeping? Did you lose your job? Like where someone said, I'm losing sleep over losing sleep. Well, that conversation can get direct really quickly. It's like, is it, what's going on? Is it, your family situation, your work situation, whatever. So I think that serves it well. I think in English, we're so cryptic about everything. And we lack metaphors. I find some people say it's partially because English, especially North American English, was because we had so many people come from many cultures that those metaphors didn't go straight across. So like if she was to say that here, people wouldn't necessarily get that same picture. So we kind of dropped a lot of those metaphors because people don't understand them. So for you, I think
there's still a lot of metaphors, but like it's I think a lot of them are second order.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good way to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like language is inescapably. It's like I was trying to explain to medical students recently, like how metaphorical language is. Like something like spur of the moment. Yeah. Most people don't realize that spur of the moment is a reference to like horses spurs, right? Like cowboy spurs. So it's like the metaphor is there, but it's like
the meaning.
It's like second and third order.
Yeah,
so
we don't know why it started.
To, like, even users, exactly. Like we don't even recognize that we're being metaphorical anymore. It's almost what's happening.
It is like, I find that in general, like, especially traveling around the world, and coming back into Canada and just seeing my culture from different eyes again. And also, like what I was saying with clients, what was really cool is I got to see the world from totally different eyes all the time. I mean, think about 936 or something like that in 2.5 months. I got to see the world through 936 people's eyes in 2.5 months. And then I got to do it all over again the year later and the year later and a year later. And some of this repeated people, I could see them 20 years later and the world through their eyes. So when I come into culture, back into culture, it's somewhat like that too. And we're very closed and controlled. Like white people, it's very closed in many ways. And what I enjoy about, people from many other cultures, especially when I go south, or when I meet Africans, I've never been to Africa yet, is just how vibrant and out of the world they are. And so like when you talk about the way they pray, it's everything. I mean, we could talk quite a bit more about that, because I've got some ideas about how language influences it and our environment and everything else. But I want to go back to talk about like what we were going to talk about is
yes. We've gone on the way off.
Oh, that's all right. That's the fun stuff. May or may not cut this out. We'll see what happens. So what I was thinking about was a C.S. Lewis quote, something that he wrote. And because you're a C.S. Lewis fan, it'll really resonate with you. And I may not do it service because I'm pulling this from my memory right now. If I remember correctly, C.S. Lewis wrote this in a letter. I believe that there was a group of men that he had a group of, do you remember all of their names? I
know Tolkien was there and Charles Williams was there.
Yeah.
The Inklings.
And George, anyway, so there's a group of men, which is what you normally get when a group of friends that were really close. And one of them had died. I thought it was George, but I'm not 100% sure. But something that he was lamenting about really resonates with me, and it's sat with me. And so basically what he says is, I miss in him what he brought out in the rest of the group.
Oh, yes. That was, I think, was that not the 4 letters, the 4 loves? I can't remember. But I know what you're talking about. I've explained to people before, like you have A, B, and C. And when C is not even necessarily there, just like not there, there's something about A you will never see again because it only came out because of C.
Yeah. So like if people couldn't follow that, I'll give an example. So I was saying I'm a tax specialist. When I was super young, my second year, I got promoted to management. Just kind of happened. And then right away I got moved into the main office, which was a pretty big deal, but it was a big undertaking for me. I was young with people who'd been working there for a long time. Males didn't love taking leadership from a young female at the time. That's easier for them now. It was like 20 years ago. And I was proving myself.
No, there's still see a bit of it.
Yeah, not as much. I don't think it's as much as like what I saw, but it was all fine. But I just it's super busy during tax season, and I was commission based. Plus I get a percentage of my sales. And so, I didn't really think that much about it, but I ran it like a ship. Like it was a tight ship. Everything ran smooth. I'm training and running everything at the same time. And, so that's the version that they saw me at work. Serious Sam, work hard, for the clients, get serve as many clients as we possibly can in a short period of time, the best we can. Well, we had a staff meeting about 2 months in, and I brought my husband along, our staff kind of party thing. I brought my husband along, and we were at somebody's house, and my husband is freaking hilarious with the right people. He needs the right person for his wit. And he is like a comedy show on wheels with the right person. Other than that, he is because I'm very vibrant, obviously. He's the quiet one. He sits quietly and people see the quiet him, but you get the right person and all of a sudden he's alive and he is like on a roll and the whole room will be laughing because he's so quick-witted and just clever, which is something I love about him. He's so funny, can be very funny. But what was interesting about that was... You need
to get the right people.
Yeah, but I didn't think much about it until on the Monday I came back to work and the whole office was weird with me. And I was like, what is going on? And then someone says to me, we just never saw that part of you. Like that a guy like that would be married to someone like you. And I was just like, what is that supposed to mean? I'm just so boring. But it reminded me of the C.S. Lewis, like they saw me as a different person when he was around, but also he was a different person when.
And they knew you forever, but they didn't see that part.
No. And I'm bringing this up for a reason, because it reminds me of this, which helps me. When I'm with a young adult and I'm mentoring them, I am a different person. When I used to mentor young adults all the time, 2.5 years every week, big part of my life for a long time. Love young adults. It's like we meet in the air or something. You think I love these clients? I really love young adults, 18 to 35-ish, my favorite people on the earth. Anyway, when I'm with them though, I will put a hoodie on. I'm wearing different earrings. I hold myself slightly different. I'll, sleep late. How you probably the same thing. They would never in a million years even know I was a tax accountant if I didn't tell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking.
Don't worry, I did. I work with kids in Nigeria too, so I totally get it. I used to call it getting into character.
Right.
But it wasn't hypocrisy because I thought about it at one point, like, why am I different? But like, no, it's me. It's just a different part of me. In fact, the truth is the people at work never saw that part of me.
Right. But
that the kids saw.
They're
just
all
like
versions.
The kids didn't see the work part of me, but they're all me.
They're all versions of you. And just because of you were talking about your faith-based background, I see the 4 gospels like that too. Because people are like, well, why do we need 4 gospels?
That is a good way to put it. Yeah.
So really you get 4 accounts and you're seeing they're all seeing the same, all going to the same events, many of them, but they're reporting it differently from their perspective. But because you get to hear 4 perspectives, you get a much more well-rounded picture of different aspects of Jesus. It's sort of like when you go to a funeral and you have like the father speak, the brother speak, a coworker speak, and the son speak. And then you realize that
you thought you knew this person, but there were so many sides of them. I love that so much at funerals. Like, you know this person, but then other people say stories and you'll be like, wow, I did not know that thing happened. Or that part of them was as rich as this.
And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh.
And it's the same person you knew.
And sometimes your friend, you're like, now I understand that person on so many more levels because of something I heard at a funeral. So I enjoy going to funerals because it helps me be a better friend to people. Because later I'm like, I understand them a little more. But I think that when we start to say we try to cut ourselves apart, that's the wrong thing to do. And I think just coming to terms with the fact that when I'm around certain people, this is the version of me I am. And when I'm around these certain people, this is the version I am of me. Something that I've really learned to get to is to pay attention which one I like the best. So when do I feel the happiest? So
that is a good point. Yeah.
It reminds me.
So when do you feel? Yeah, go on.
Well, again, this is a cultural thing I learned, and I teach this to lots of young adults. I created a method. So when I went to Ecuador for 2 months, I did some consulting in 2016 for 2 months with up to 30 ministry agents in Ecuador. And when I came back, because of the contrast, I really noticed which relationships in my life caused me agitation, which I didn't really notice before. I sort of knew subconsciously. And I'm going to be really raw here. I used to really self-hate around certain people. I'd talk to somebody and they could be the nicest person in the world. I liked them. And then I'd go in the bathroom and start talking to myself. I'd be like, hey, Samantha, why did you say that? That was so stupid. Do you not know how offensive that was? Or you should have talked about this, or you should have been more sensitive about that. And I honestly used to have women, by the way, so women would be like, put toilet paper under the stall and be like, do you need toilet paper, miss? Because they hear me talking in the bathroom. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I was talking out loud. But when I came back, all of a sudden I started to realize which people I was around that with the most. And then I was like, this is not good. And so I implemented this new little, because I was self-aware, I implemented a new little thing in my life, and I have a different name. I call it the SAM method, but I'm going to just use 5 minutes. Anyone that I come away with not liking myself after and doing a form of self-hating, I will spend no more than 5 minutes with that person. So I come to them and I say, hey, this is how I start. I smile, because every interaction should start with a smile, right? It just should. Start a smile. And I'm like, hey, it's great to see you today. And I genuinely mean it. I love people. I'm like, hey, it's great for you to see you today. And then instead of asking an open-ended question, I make a personal comment. Hey, I noticed that your son's home from university today or this week. You must be super excited to have him home again. So they know I'm paying attention to their life, saying something specific, but nothing that's going to generate a long conversation. And then they're like, yeah, it's really good to have him home. They'll add something. And I'm like, well, it was really great to see you again. And then I shift. And that has made all the difference, like a huge, huge impact in my life. Because what it has done is freed me for energy and mental space for positive relationships. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is, the first week that I really intentionally put this plan into place, I was at church talking to a woman, someone I used to self-hate every time I was around for some weird reason. And she's an amazing woman. I don't know what was going on there, but I did. And when I came back from Ecuador, I noticed it. So I'm like, I'm going to try this. So I did. And then instead of trying to prove myself for 20 minutes with her and self-hating for the next hour after, I did this method, shifted over. And then I happened to look over in the lobby, and there was this young gal, really young gal with a baby on her hip. And she looked like the deer in the headlight, out of place, nervous, very, very agitated. And so I walked over to her, introduced myself, started chatting up with her. Turns out she was a teen mom, trying to raise her baby on her own, Mormon background, which is interesting even more. And this was the first time she'd come into our church. And she was super nervous. And so I went over, we made friends, talked for like forever. She's the cutest little guy. And that turned into a relationship. We still connect every once in a while. And she'll refer back to that and be like, you have no idea what that meant to have you come over and just like sit with me. And I felt like I had a place. And then I used to invite her to sit with me after, like other Sundays, she'd come and like come sit with her family. And so because I shut that one part of my life off that wasn't serving, then I was open to something beautiful, which I wouldn't have been had I been forcing this other relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of like, it's like sort of like the monkey, well, not monkey's paws, like, the thing about like, if you, like, I can't remember whether it's a monkey, whatever. The animal that puts his hand in a jar to pick something up, but then can't take it out because it's still, clenched. And actually, if you just take it out, then you can turn the thing around. But like, it's like just letting go of what you think you need to hold so that you can actually have more stuff.
Yeah, so I think like becoming self-aware of the different versions of you. And then also the version you become around certain types of people or certain people, which is like leads us back to Facebook and Instagram, because people come into our life because either we serve them where they are at that time or they serve us. Sometimes it's circumstances. And so we create a relationship based on the present then. But then later, when we show a different version of ourselves, they may reject it. And that's the part that we struggle with, because we're like, they just rejected us. Well, they rejected another version of us that they hadn't saw. And it might not be just that they don't like it. It just wasn't what they agreed to in the relationship, I guess.
I like that. It's not what they agreed to. It's like, this is not in the contract.
This wasn't in our unsaid contract that I'm going to hold you till to the day you die.
Yes, this is what we agreed to that. And, I find that interesting, actually, because you're so right. And I think, because I'm thinking about it, and I realize that actually, there's some people, so like with family, for instance, you might decide, you know what, all right, it's fine. We will keep our relationship to XYZ, but it means you will never get to know the rest of me.
Yeah.
And so be it, because clearly you cannot accept more than that. Mm-hmm. But then there's sometimes when we say, nope, if you can't take that, then you can't get any of it.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering about why we decide which. Because I think both are right in different. I disagree with because I think some people would say, oh no, if they can't take any of it, then they shouldn't take any of it. I'm like, nah, nobody does that. No, like even if you say that, nobody does. Like you definitely don't take everything to work.
Right.
Well, I hope you don't.
Right.
You can't be everything everywhere with everyone. And that's normal. That's fine. But I'm just thinking about how do we decide which is when? And I suppose the ones that really hurts is when you think you can be everything with someone and then you realize you can't.
Yeah. That happens in marriage
that's
the
when
most.
Really,
I think that's where that becomes the most pronounced. And even when you were saying about that's not in the contract, the first thing I thought about is marriage, right? Like it's like
like some really close friendships where you thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think actually now that you mention marriage, I feel like even in marriage, there's lots of people probably in marriages who don't bring everything.
But you're never like I got married at 20. I am hardly the person I was when I was 20.
True.
So,
yeah.
like for someone to say you're not the person I married saying, and I signed up for.
Everybody gets married 2 or 3 times. If you're lucky, it's the same person.
So true. And I think that when we go through big issues in our marriage, it's awful when we're trying to wrestle through a shift in one of us. And it's like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. And then it wasn't in the contract, even though the contract really was to stay together no matter what.
Wasn't it?
But it's something we just have to like refigure out how that relationship works. I mean, you reminded me of that, of like when I got sick. When I got really sick, like I won't be able to mentally go there very much because I'll probably flare if I get emotional. But like when I got really sick, I was incapacitated. Like thought maybe I was going to die. I went, it was very bad. I was in so much pain. So imagine 3rd degree burn, like that kind of level of pain. My entire body was like that 24 hours a day with like 3rd degree burn level. It was unbelievable. Wow. I couldn't even cut my own hair. I couldn't wash my own hair. I couldn't cut food. I had a young family to serve. We have a farm that requires meals brought out. It was the most horrifying. I never wished on my worst enemy. And honestly, I had a large group of friends and I thought, I'm the one that's always been there helping people when they're stuck. And I thought, okay, they're going to come and be here. And you know what? They weren't.
Oh my goodness.
And I had to go through a lot of soul searching. So on top of physically being incapacitated and my family, my kids crying at night, wondering if I'm dying and they're going to lose their mom. On top of that, I've just lost all the people I've invested with for many years. And my husband too, for his entire lifetime since childhood. So it was a lot for us to handle. And I mean, in many ways, like my illness was hard, but it was almost the emotional stuff was harder than the physical challenge.
No, I totally, I can see that.
And kind of where I'm going with this is I had to do a lot of because essentially I felt rejected. So I was like, what is it about me that has no value? Why do they hate, this is myself at the time. Why do they hate me so much that they wouldn't help? Like, how could they let us drown like this? It's like, they all know I went overboard on the ship, but no one's going to throw out a life jacket. They're just going the other side of the ship and pretend they don't know what's going on. And so I really had to figure out what was going on in relationships. And eventually I came to this. I think like the world has takers and the world has givers. I'm a huge giver. It's a little bit of a high for me sometimes when I was talking about taxes. I loved giving to clients. I loved helping them find tax breaks they didn't expect. And givers need takers, because if there's no takers, there's no givers. And so what I realized is that our relationship was a giver-taker. Now they were givers on the relationships, but in our particular relationship, they were the takers. So when I no longer could give, that changed the contract.
You have no value.
It changed the contract, and they were trying to figure out what that meant, I think. And it really changed the way I have done relationships going forward. I always look for relationships that are going to be reciprocated. Even from one, I mean, not always, sometimes it's ministry based, but I'm like, okay, I need to see that the other person's going to make an effort and it reciprocates back, because that's a healthy relationship. And I'm creating healthy ones. It was my own fault too. I just didn't know. But it just reminded me of what we were talking about with like why we show a certain part of ourselves, why I was afraid to, like in this case, I had no choice but to be sick. Like, it's not like I chose to be the sick one.
No, you couldn't have. Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what you said. It reminds me of like, I have this sort of idea of like the three kinds of relationships you can have in terms of hierarchy. And it's mentors, mates, and ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So mentors are people like, obviously, like they're ahead of you. You take more from them, and that's fine. Mates is like more give and take, and then ministry is like you give more.
Mm-hmm.
And so for like I had sort of two rough ideas that came from it. One is that the most difficult thing is when that changes, and one person or at least one of both don't realize that it's changed.
Yeah.
And so like your mate shifts to mentor, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
And like mentor there doesn't necessarily mean mentor, but like, it's like your mates together, but then they get into this position of power. And suddenly you think you're still mates, but maybe to them, you're now like, you're not mates anymore. And so you're trying to relate as mates. And they're like, why are you doing that? Do you know what I mean? Or the other way around, right? Or you think this happened to me as a kid. Someone I thought I was mates with, something happened that put me in a different position. And I realized that we couldn't be mates anymore because he didn't.
You're
see
saying
me
the word
mate.
mates. It took me about 5 times to get that. Okay, mates. Yes,
Oh,
you were
sorry.
mates.
Accent stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like he couldn't see me as a mate anymore. Right. Because now in his mind I was superior, and I was trying to relate as a mate, but I realized I couldn't relate as a mate. So I had to let it go. Luckily, he got what I got, and then we became mates again. But that sort of changed things for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my mind, it's like, right, our being mates is obviously for you very dependent on what's going on in terms of external things.
Yeah.
And I think one tricky one that upsets people is when you think someone is your mate, but to them you're superior, and they just want to receive from you. Mm-hmm. And I realized, like, once you accept that actually in this relationship, I'm not, it's not give and take, it's just give. It gives you peace, because what I feel like what that means is you don't kill yourself for those people, right?
Right.
You give when you can. The people you kill yourselves for are your mates. And like maybe the people that, you feel like, the ones that give to you. So the ones that like you mainly take from them. So when you have a chance to give, you go all out, right?
Yeah.
But like people that just take from you, they're taking all the time. So like, I'm not going to kill myself so you can take some more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've taken so much. And I feel like it's just useful sort of, but like they also ship. But I think another thing that's tricky is when you're mates with someone and then they think you're superior, but they don't think you should be superior. Then jealousy sets in. Mm-hmm. Because I realize the only people who are ever jealous of you are people who think that you're mates. People who acknowledge you as superior for whatever reason never get jealous.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yeah, you're superior, whatever. Like, that's your position and this is mine. But if they think you're mates and now you're superior and they don't think you should be, oh my goodness.
You reminded me of like, because of their biblical background, so you'll catch this one. But it's like when the Pharisees go and call Jesus out, it's only because they don't think he should be in a superior position.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways,
exactly.
They're actually complimenting him in a lot of ways, because you would never call someone out that you don't think is even equal to you, because it doesn't serve you. Because if someone is genuinely a superior, if you call them out and you fail, you just put yourself down an extra level. So you're not going to do that. Yeah. You're only going to call someone out that you think you're going to gain a level up on. And you got to be pretty close. So they're complimenting Jesus when they're doing this by calling him out and saying, we think you're an equal and we don't think you're a superior. And so that kind of that tension that goes on there, just what you're talking about reminds me of that.
Yeah. Relationships are weird. But yeah, they're beautiful, but C.S. Lewis has this saying that the greater a thing's potential for good, the worse its potential for evil. Yeah. And like a madman is worse than a mad dog, right? Like, I mean, mad, not mentally ill, but like, someone like who is like just morally disruptive and chaotic. Yeah. Can do a lot more damage because he has a lot more potential for good. And I think about that a lot. Like So sometimes when things are really messed up, I often think to myself that actually sometimes that's because there's so much potential here.
Yeah.
But it goes both ways.
Whenever you see an extreme, the possibility to, like, an extreme is a magnification. So, I mean, if they can be magnified in evil, then it makes sense that they can be magnified for good as well.
Exactly.
That actually reminds me of something that I used to see. So when I was in Ecuador, lots of ministry based, and we used to see people leave, convert, come into Christianity, and then after a while they became boat rockers. And then it was difficult in the groups because they couldn't,
boat rockers within the Christian community or within the communities that they were in before.
They become boat rockers. They all come into Christianity. They're super excited, but once they've been there a little while, they often become boat rockers. And then there's resentment against them. And one time I said to the ministry leaders, I was just like, okay, so the personality that was willing to leave the current situation they were in, their culture, their family,
expect, right?
they're naturally a boat rocker. I'm like, if they weren't boat rockers, they wouldn't have come off. They wouldn't have left that situation. Exactly. Then all of a sudden you're like, so you're saying, don't conform to this world. But then when they come in the church, you're like, now you need to conform. And I'm like, I don't think you really understand this. They're nonconformists. That's what made them
willing to do this.
And I'm like, you need to embrace the fact that they're willing to be nonconformists. And so, in fact, what you probably want to do is when you're looking at people to invest in, you probably want to invest in the nonconformists. They're going to be the hardest. But like, I'm telling you, if somebody's a party toes the party line, they're not going to leave it. They're not going to nonconform. So that energy. I mean, I'm oversimplifying because we know the spirit has a power too. So
no, I totally get it. I get what you're saying, but it's like it reminds me of like, people wanting like some kind of like creative people on their team, and then
exactly.
But like it's like, what do you think was gonna happen though? Like, you can have one of it. Like you have them, you have all of them, good and bad.
Mm-hmm. But then what ends up happening is we end up trying to conform them because we don't know how to handle it. And then
sometimes you succeed and break them.
And you break them. That's exactly what I was going to say. So the very thing you needed and sought out is the thing you end up crushing in them. And we do this in marriage too, right? Like we say the things that we love about someone is the things we hate about them. And so then, I'm drawn to this person because of this and this, but then it also becomes the Achilles heel. It's the thing we try to crush out of them because it drives us crazy as well. So, humans are humans. It's the same, a lot of the same underlining, behaviors problems that just manifest in different ways depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit of a boat rocker. I'll just my husband, he sometimes says, do you always have to rock the boat? Because he's not a boat rocker. And the funny thing is that sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it. Like I honestly am just oblivious to the fact that this is bothering people. And also because I grew up mostly with a single mom. So my mom didn't really, she didn't raise us to be she actually pretty much raised us countercultural, but I didn't know that. So
it was normal in your house.
It was normal within our house to just speak our mind. And my mom was a male and a female. She, fixed bikes and cars and took the trash out and took care of finances, but also did the mom things.
She did all the things.
Yeah. So like this whole thing of genders having certain roles was definitely not something that played in. So I sometimes cross these lines. But anyway, I have a comeback from my husband now. It took me about 5 years to get a good one. But so anytime he's like, do you always have to be a boat rocker? I'll be like, well, you married outside your culture. So I feel like you're a boat rocker with me.
Boom.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Doesn't change the fact that he's not happy about it. But anyway, I did tell you I wanted to be a lawyer in another lifetime. The poor guy has no chance to with me. I've got a whole arsenal.
Just be glad this is what you got.
I'm a lot. I know. Sorry, hubby, if you're listening to this. I love him to pieces, and the guy definitely has his hands full with me sometimes. So
I have a friend who once said, one of like the most beautiful things I've heard someone say about their spouse. She was complaining about her husband, and then she said, "But he does have to put up with me, so he gets a pass." It's like, that's a very lovingly realistic way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I'm a lot of work. What I dislike is when other men in front of me will walk up to my husband and say, "Your wife must be a lot of work." And I'm always like I seriously can't believe you just said that in front of me. It's true. They're like doing the whole brotherhood thing, like I feel sorry for you thing, but it's so insulting.
You could do a sisterhood thing too.
It's so insulting. And I'm like, so am I supposed to be at home pregnant and barefoot and just keep saying nothing? I don't know. Like, what did you just say there? But anyway.
If you don't want work, don't get married, period, I suppose. Yeah,
but I was telling you that I mentor a lot of young adults, and then they have other things. Like, it breaks my heart. A lot of them don't want to be single. They really desire to be married. And also, we are pre-programmed to procreate. So, and that is definitely something they have to really work through, that's may never happen for them. And what does that look like? And some are good with it and others aren't, but it's when a choice is taken from you, when it's not really your choice not to have children, because, you don't marry, you don't find that partner. Yeah. That's there's way a grieving harder. That has to happen there. Yeah. And it can re-grieve and re-grieve. It could be again when they're 90 and they re-grieve it again. And I think we need to be more sensitive for people who are going through that in today's culture, because it's something that older people do not understand, because it just wasn't something they really dealt with.
Yeah, that's so true. And doesn't it help that we sort of idolize marriage a little bit, marriage, and because I think also of like, because I've got like lots of friends who are like older and single, and who have to sort of face the possibility that actually I may not get married, and they really wanted to. Like, there are people who don't care, and that's fine. But it's harder for people who really, really wanted to, but somehow haven't found anyone to partner with. And the older you get, the more you have to face the possibility that I might not.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I suppose it depends where you are, but I feel like there's a lot of things that culturally are just a bit more difficult, I think. I think one of it is just loneliness, like just being aware of people like that and being very deliberate in like connecting with them.
Yeah.
And not just like, just being, I think friendship always matters. I think it matters even more for someone who wants to be partnered but isn't.
Yeah. It's a whole other conversation, just the hearts of listening to, many, many single people. And it's not even ones that, they're not all ones that didn't get married. It's some that were married and then it didn't work out. So that's that's a thing that gets really heavy on me. My heart breaks for that. So, So we covered a lot of ground today.
I know. We did. We did.
Is your head going to explode with all of the directions we went?
I have actually taken out a few notes, because I was like, I know me. I'm not going to remember everything. I'm going to be like, there was something really good now. Although I know you said you're going to share the video.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's not like I didn't share this transcript. Actually, I should ask about that, because that would be more helpful. Because then I can just search, I find timestamp.
To be honest,
and then go and listen to that bit.
To be honest, I think that when I get to it, it'll be a little bit, but when I do, I'm going to have to send it to you, because sometimes I couldn't quite catch what you were saying. So,
that's fine.
I might have you to just go through it and make sure that the words are correct on a few of them. So I'm like, here's a transcript, and just check and make sure your words were correct here. So it probably will be fine. But I know you've said some things too, that definitely are going to be circling around.
Yeah,
For a while.
There's lots to think about. There's lots to think about here. I really like, I really like the that talking to themselves thing you said at the start. For me, it's just like, it's something I'm going to be thinking about a lot.
It's helped me less verbalize sometimes when I'm upset with somebody, to just not actually talk anymore. Like before, I always, I felt more obligated to discuss it, get it out. Yeah, I think you and I are talkers, and I think that's the danger, right? That we have all the time. But since I've come to this epiphany about talking to yourself, that we talk to ourselves, I find I don't need to do it as much now. I can keep it inside my head, or something I do is I have an iPad Pro. It's my favorite tech, honestly, because you can just sit on the couch and just write.
Oh, I love. It's my most used computer.
Yeah. My husband actually told me the other day that I was having an affair with my Apple products, because He's like, I feel.
I love my iPad. Like one of my favorite use cases for the iPad. I have the iPad and the pencil. And it's so great to take notes. So I've got this app called Nebo that turns, I don't know if you know it.
Mm-hmm, I've heard of it.
It turns notes into text as you write.
Yeah.
Nimble, so basically, right? Apple Scribble. Yeah. Yes. It's so great for taking notes when you're talking to patients.
Yeah.
Because it's there's something about using a computer when you're talking to a patient that I don't like. It doesn't feel right? Like people do it, and I do it in a pinch. But I don't like it. I don't like it. It's But using an iPad is like literally writing the notebook. Yeah. But I don't have to write twice with Nebo. Yeah. Because before I would have to write in a notebook and then transcribe it on the computer. Yeah. Later when I'm taking my, like now I just write it in Nebo and then just send it to the computer, and it's like all done, all text. I'm
gonna retry it again. I haven't tried it since like one of its beta stages, so I forgot about it. But that's how I process now. Like I'll just go sit out in the sun for a bit and then just started kind of like processing my thoughts out, or drawing it out, or just being like, I was super frustrated with someone that I thought was sweeping some stuff under the carpet that shouldn't be doing that. I thought that so I got this picture in my mind, and I was like, wait a minute. And I just drew it instead of talking to them about it. Because honestly, I've learned that with some people, especially the older they get, it's really unproductive. Like it's not going to do anything. It just agitates them. And they honestly think that they got through them. And then the next time they just act the same anyway. So I just went on my tablet and I just drew two people with a carpet. And then I just drew like all this debris under. And then my second picture was two people with this carpet with a big mound, like a mountain. And you couldn't see each other anymore because there was just so much stuff that had been swept under the carpet from your relationship that you no longer were actually connecting anymore. You couldn't even see past all the debris. And then it just, for me, that's all I needed. I didn't need to say it to the person. I just drew it out.
Yeah. And it reminds me of this, this thing people say about, what's it called? Like writing letters and then burning them up. That's what this sounds like.
Yeah, I had a therapist who did that with me once too. But then I was like, wait a minute, what did I all write in there? I really want to look at that again. And then I was obsessed with it.
Oh my goodness.
I've got mental problems. You probably want to like bring me into your office and help me.
We all do.
Anyway, but this whole talking to yourself, I realized that we don't always have to talk in somebody else's presence. And I'm just more conscious. Am I talking to this person about this issue because I think it's in the best interest of our relationship, or am I doing it just because I feel the need to talk it out?
Yeah.
And again, it works when people are doing it. I
like it a lot.
Yeah. And other people, just going back to that, other people, when they're doing it to you, because not everybody is necessarily going to be that self-aware, is just talking, just letting them do it without letting it stick to you, like being that one-sided tape that I was talking about earlier. And I teach this little method to young adults, or like when I mentor young adults, I talk to them a lot about this, especially if they say, so-and-so said da-da-da-da-da-da-da to me. And then I'll be like, I'll tell them this, like, a lot of that, probably a good portion of that was just them talking out loud to themselves. And then, man, they're just like, oh, you're right. They had this going on and that going on. And You were just the first or the safest person that they came across after they had something happen to them. And you just need to same thing we do to everyone else. We sometimes, it's like we boil over and then I think of this sometimes, sometimes when we're really upset, it's like we're a paint can and then we're shaking up all over the place and the paint just starts spilling all over everyone. And then they got to clean the paint off themselves. It's like, I can't get this stain out. I can't get this paint out you left to me. And so now I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious when my paint can starts to get a little agitated, that I don't just let it just fly everywhere. And I realized that
Do you follow Craig Burgess's The Daily Visual on Twitter?
No.
So he does this thing called Daily Visual. And basically, because I'm saying that because
you talk about Jack Butcher?
You said you like to draw.
Oh, Jack Butcher?
No. Craig Burgess.
Oh, okay. Who?
Craig Burgess.
Craig Burgess?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not him. It's the Daily Visual. So it's not his.
I've seen the Daily Visual. Yeah, I subscribed to the Daily Visual. I just couldn't remember it was him.
Oh, right. Yeah. I thought you would like it.
Yeah, there's some stuff.
I think it's the one that does the is it the Daily Visual? The one that says, the one that has where he basically asks people, he puts out a prompt, basically. He puts out a prompt for you to sort of draw something. So I saw one today that was visualize the word secure, but without using the obvious imagery.
Oh, actually, sorry, I mixed you up. I've never heard of him. I thought you were talking about Jack Butcher's visualize. So. Oh,
right. No. So this is more interesting because this is more, it's more about you.
Right.
And I thought it was really cool. I'm not very into drawing, but it's something I want to get better at because I used to draw as a kid and then I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of the challenge for today was visualize something that is secure without using the obvious metaphors like padlocks and safes.
Right.
And people drew also, I checked some of the replies and, some people drew someone holding a teddy bear. And I thought that might be something you might fancy if you like to draw, but I think it might appeal to sort of your creative side as well.
Well, I definitely see the value in that. I like to draw when I feel inspired to work something that's kind of gnawing at me, I guess.
Okay.
And to be honest, I draw stick people. When I teach and I draw stick people, they're 3-year-old, a 4-year-old or 3-year-old could probably better draw a better stick person than me. But it's fine.
That's the thing. It's not about the Daily Visual is not about
no.
the quality of the drawings. It's just about the fun. It's play.
I'm surprised you don't do more of that with your patients because
more of what, drawing or play. Which do you mean?
But drawing, using, well, you probably do use drawing as part of it. I find that we use drawing with children a lot, but not as much with adults.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't think it would. So those kinds of things are the kind of things that the nurses would do. You don't get to have that much time really on a ward.
Can they draw something after and bring it to you, after they've processed, I suppose, and then?
Yeah.
I find it very therapeutic. I didn't draw a lot before, but I was telling you I did my master's, and I was still just kind of coming out of my illness. I have no idea. Well, it was definitely a prompting to do it, and I didn't do it for work purposes. And it was so hard the first 6 months because I had pretty much not used my brain a ton for such a long period of time being so sick. It's kind of like, when you're in a wheelchair and you can't walk because you have to rebuild those muscles again. So seminary type language, very upper academic. And I had to read the same page 10 times, I swear, sometimes. But eventually the craziest thing is I started to build, that was my climb out of my illness, actually, was just building my brain back up. Physically, I can't lift anything heavy. I couldn't walk very much at the time. Physically, I was not able to do a lot, but I slowly built my brain back up. And about a year and a half, about the 18-month mark, so it's a 2-year program straight through, 18 months, just bam, I started to see the world in a whole new dimension. It was like a whole ton of doors just opened up everywhere in my mind. And it was like I had access to rooms with tons and tons of libraries that I didn't have before. And I started to see the world visually. Like, I actually used to be a professional photographer for a while, so I can visualize things like, like stand in different directions and different lights. But this was different. And then I just started drawing. I never drew before, except for in elementary when they force you to. I never drew before. And then all of a sudden, I just kept drawing pictures and images. And I just never stopped. And now I use it therapeutically quite a bit to process information.
Yeah.
And when I'm
I think it's really good.
Yeah, I was stuck writing an essay yesterday. It was just so overwhelming. So I just switched mediums, and I did end up doing it on Crello. I drew it out by hand first and then went on Crello and did it. But it was helpful for me to just switch mediums.
Do you I guess I'm wondering, like, I feel like your drawing can't be that bad. As bad as you're making it sound, if you draw that much. But I feel like you've gotten over the first problem of drawing, which is thinking you can't draw.
Oh my gosh. I'll pull something up for you. I'll be super vulnerable. Let's see here. Well, yeah, okay, let's see. So I used to go on Google Keep originally, just because it was the easiest thing I could do with my pen. I had a Samsung Note 9 for a while. Absolutely loved it. But then I just found it such a pain not to have everything the same platform. So I gave it up, but I miss it so much.
Is it because it was smaller?
Because I had a phone and I could just draw something out. It was for me, it was processing. I mean, this isn't maybe the best. Well, okay, so here I'm processing language that like German and Dutch are direct languages, and then looking at other languages like Italian or Spanish that are flowery. And so here's me just drawing out the differences. Let's see if I can get on the screen. So I'm showing a direct language, point A to B, and then I'm showing.
I like this. This is it. This is the whole point.
Oh,
this is Apple Notes, right? You draw in Apple Notes.
Well, that one was in Google, but I do an app. No, I do in Notability. But so what I'm drawing here is.
That didn't look like Notability.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't look like Notability because I used the dotted paper.
Oh yeah, well you can turn the dotted paper off.
You can just choose blank.
You can turn that off. But what I was doing was drawing that, like in some languages, like, so here I show English.
Yeah, I like it. This is
so, there's a flower, there's a flower here, and we kind of go beat around the bush. But then some flowery language, like the language is a journey. So like Italian to me is like a journey. So does it matter which one is faster than the other? Obviously this journey is longer to listen to all of this.
But one is also more interesting.
It depends on your purpose, but I find that the culture of people is quite dependent on their language. One of the first things I do when I meet people is I'll ask them where their heritage, like where's their ancestry from? Because in Canada, it's always like the last stamp. Oh, I'm Canadian. I'm like, oh, give me a break. That's what I like about African Americans. At least they're going to say they originally came from Africa. So, but in Canada, you would say never African Canadian. No one would ever say that. We're Canadian. And so,
have you ever read The Culture Map?
Yeah, I've read it.
All right. So I was gonna.
Of course, both of us would get all giddy about a book like that. But it just reminds me of, like, I'll meet someone and I'll be like, well, what's your heritage? Because it really helps me a lot. Like a friend of mine, she was super frustrated because everyone kept telling her how direct she is. And they're like, you're too direct, you're too blunt. And she was just beside herself. Single woman. So just relationships in general were becoming difficult for her. And she was just feeling very lonely. And I'm like, let me guess, your mom's German. And she's like, how did you know that? I was like, well, because you're a very direct speaker. And I'm a direct speaker. And so I was like, I just kind of figured, and usually females are more influenced by their mother's language. And even though her mother actually didn't speak German herself, but her mom or her, they'd been in the country for 100 years, you're still going to use English in a way that your culture, the way the previous culture would use it. So we're going to take out all those modal verbs and extra soft words you and I were talking about, like, would you like, you may want to think about this. Germans don't talk like that. Do this, do that. So what I said to her was, I'm like, look, you have this German background. You just don't even know about it. It's influencing the way you talk to people. I get that you're American, but you're really German American in many ways. Even though your family's been here 100 years. And I'm like, this is what I do. I just put a disclaimer at the front and a disclaimer at the end. Because when I got to put in all those extra soft, flowery words, I'm exhausted and I'm not really saying I can't mentally function. So this is what I say. I'm like, I'm going to, I'll say something like, hey, I have some suggestions for you. I'm going to say them probably directly, but they're all suggestions and it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do with them.
Yeah.
And then and then I just speak directly. And then at the end, I say, these were just suggestions and in my humble opinion. So it's up to you what you want to do with them.
So it's like, I'm just going to batch everything.
It works. I can speak flowerily with people if they need it. Like, if somebody's hurting, obviously probably what you do. If someone's hurting, I'll come down to that and talk softly and very carefully and gently and generously. Yeah. But anyway, so just reminded me of that. So I drew that out. Like, her and I had this conversation, and that's exactly why I drew this out. We were talking about her obstacles because of her language, the way she's speaking language. So I was like, wait a minute, what does this mean for different kinds of languages and where we come from? And so I just went to my iPad and just drew it out.
Yeah. I like it. I like the, thanks for that. That's something I definitely want to do more of. I'm always thinking of things I want to draw. So it's two things. One, I'm not very visual in how I think. But I know that there's something there. And I feel like if I drew more, I would explore it. I think that if I started to draw more, I would start to draw more. Like it would feed itself, basically. So this is a reminder to just do it. I like the fact that you just do it.
Yeah. And I've never posted that. It's just sitting in my iPad. I can tag it if I want, but it served me well. Something that I'd recommend is maybe try some photography. It's something that I think that everyone should try. And now that everybody has one on the phone, but you will learn to see things from multiple dimensions. And I'm going to be assertive here. I would recommend that all of your patients take photography, because what it will do is teach them, I'm not joking. It'll teach them to see things from more perspectives than their own. Because when you stand in front of something, even in your office, this one might be I think out loud, even if you had like for females, a flower, some different subjects that people might want to photograph, and just paying attention. Like when I stand in front of this flower, I get a shadow because the light is behind me. And so there's a shadow on the flower. So all of a sudden I've seen that because of where I'm standing, the flower is in a shadow. Well, if I shift my position over to the other side of the light, now all of a sudden there's no shadow on the flower. I've discovered things like I live by the Rocky Mountains, and I'll take a I know, it's pretty cool. I'll take a macro photograph of a wildflower, and then all of a sudden I go on my computer and there's the coolest spider that I didn't even see. And it's like totally magnified. But I was so focused on the petals that I didn't notice this really cool spider. And so I think that my brain has started to go, I focused on something and missed something else. And so the perspectives that you learn and the way you train your brain to shift a situation, shift the way where you are in a room, shift your perspective, shift other people's perspective, I think is definitely built when you take on photography. And the other thing too is you start to take something and try to put it in its best light. So like I'm going to try to take a picture of a flower in its best light, or the way it's going to look the best.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to. you need to write about this stuff.
Well, now it's going to be my blog. So here's the other part of the photography thing I want to share with you, because I know we've been going on a long time, but I think this is important for your patients. Otherwise I wouldn't go on. This is the reason why it's therapeutic. I recommend photography for therapeutic reasons, for this reason, because when you're focused on taking a picture of something, you're looking at the lighting, the focus, where it is, you are blind. You like literally have blinders on to whatever's right in front of you. And you're trying to make it in the best light. But what naturally happens is everything else in your life goes quiet. Because you're focused, so narrowly focused on this object or thing, this something, whatever's in front of you, which has no personality. No reaction, no emotional reaction to you.
Yeah.
You are so focused that your brain rests. You are not going to be thinking about whatever's going on at home, or what happened with your wife, or what happened with your mom, or what happened with your dad, or what happened at work. None of it. It's completely gone. You are focused. It's almost like a form of meditation in many ways. It's not really, but it sort of is. And you push everything out.
Yeah.
And like, I was part of photography club for a long time, and we started to notice this. You can come to we used to go to we called them field trips. And this one guy had the stupidest headache when he came. Like, he was just barely functioning. 10 minutes in, his headache was completely 100% gone. He's like, Samantha, my headache's gone. And I was like, yeah, that's because you pushed everything out. All the noise in your life was gone. And you were just present and focused on that, whatever it is you were trying to make look beautiful in front of you. And for me, when I'm really, really fresh, like really, really mentally overloaded, if I just pick up my camera for 10 to 15 minutes, it is unbelievable the peace I feel. I just feel it's amazing. It's very therapeutic. And anyone can do it now.
It's getting out of yourself, isn't it? Like, yeah. It's getting out of yourself, getting out of your own head.
Yeah, well, part of the reason why I know this is because, like, I live in the Rocky Mountains, and I went up to do this wildflower festival where we have these top photographers come in, and you can take a walk up in the mountains and they'll bring you to places and take pictures. So with photographers, we always have to have someone in the rear and someone in the front, because when photographers are taking pictures, they don't hear bears.
Oh.
Because we're so focused on taking the pictures that we don't hear if a bear would come up behind us.
You literally you tune out everything else, really.
You shut everything out and focus. And so we have to have spotters. I mean, there's not a ton of times the bears are going to come, but you're quiet. Because as a photographer, I'm so quiet. So the bear wouldn't even hear me. So you are quiet, you're in tune, and you are so focused, and you shut everything out that you would not even hear a bear. So we had to have like spotters to make sure that no bears were coming up, when we were in these group settings. And that's part of what really tuned me into being like, wait a minute, this is so good for your soul. So good for your brain to reset and just quiet and turn everything else off.
It is good. Yeah. It is good, actually. Man, I feel like actually, like, this thing you're saying it's low-key part of why it's useful. For instance, so something as simple as turning your camera off on a Zoom call makes such a difference, because it's bringing you back into that self-consciousness that you don't necessarily need. Yeah, it's a lot of extra work for your mind. Yeah. Anyway, like, taking that off the table just changes so much.
Yeah. Well, I have you on and me, and sometimes I inadvertently accidentally look at me, but it's definitely more tiring. But I had to do it for the recording. So, oh my gosh, we've talked about so much. This was so much fun. My brain is exhausted. I feel like the heat is coming out of it. It's like, I'm sweating and hot. And it was a lot of fun. Love to hear.
It was.
Oh, you did say that. I always ask people, what's one thing that just like, you were like, that's something I really want to think more about. You said it was we're talking to ourselves a lot. Is that what you would say?
So it's a bunch of things. It's talking to myself, and like all the different ways you talked about it. And that's something I really want to think about. The dancing thing, I don't think I've actually talked about it as much as I have with you. So I definitely want to Um, and seeing how you resonated with it makes me think, maybe I should actually think about that a bit more as well, and like formalize it. It's not formalize it, but you know what I mean. Like
Formalize what?
Clearly.
Formulate what? I'm sorry, I missed about
the
last
dancing
part.
thing. Like the way I think about it, like just articulate it to myself.
I think it would make a
which
really
is what
good.
a lot of my essays are.
Yeah, I think it'd make a really good essay about how human interaction is a dance. And the more you do it, like I'm a little nervous about doing the podcast right now because I'm out of practice with my dance with hardly talking to anyone over COVID. So even I was talking about my paper to the Federal Finance Committee that I spent hundreds of hours on, and I couldn't even think of the name of the title because I'm just out of practice. So it's like you have to re-practice to get yourself back in that dance with talking with people and articulating in a certain way. And it'd be interesting to see when people kind of come out of COVID that, trying to struggle and figure out how to talk with people again.
Yeah. And I love like a lot of what you said about like your tax work. I feel like I'll never think about that the same way again. That was just so interesting to hear.
What's funny is when I went to Ecuador,
the humanness of it.
Yeah. When I went to Ecuador, I went there. What they actually brought me there was the main reason was to do their inventory so that if there was an earthquake or some natural disaster, that everything that the ministry owned would be logged for insurance purposes because they knew I had accounting background. So I sent them my resume and it had way more than a tax accountant on it. Anyway, when I left and they were giving me feedback, my supervisor said to me, in the future, I think you should just leave off the fact that you're a tax accountant. Like, don't put that on your resume. I'm like, why? And she goes, you were nothing like what we expected when you came off the plane. Our whole team was blown away. Like you were like nothing like we pegged you to be. We thought you were like some bean counter accountant or something.
Yeah, like this like personable person who's like gets really into it and like ends up like doing group therapy or something. Man. So good.
Yeah.
My only worry now is I fear that I will meet other tax people who are not going to live up to this.
Well, I in my experience, tax specialists who are females, and I'm just talking from like the few that I know, we're kind of like this. We're these excitable, like hyperactive mental people. I know. I know quite a few people in the accounting industry, obviously, because I know people who think like me and stuff. But I would say that in general, like even women accountants wouldn't act like me, but a tax specialist, we got this like weird energy to us and we're sort of like this, but most people would never know that there's a difference. So, and maybe it's just the ones I know, I don't know, but anyway, it's all right. It's all good. I loved what I did. And
I mean, that absolutely shows up like completely.
I miss it. And sometimes I had to close my practice because I got so sick. And then mentally, I had so much brain fog. That to do taxes requires an intellectual intensity that people just don't even understand. Like 5 hours of doing that would be, hours and hours of physical labor. So, and you got to be on your game. I mean, there's so much law, so many things you're keeping track of. And I just didn't feel like I could do a service and I was just too sick. So, but
it was a phase.
Yeah. But it's just like
which
you,
is fine.
Everything we do builds us up for what's next.
Exactly.
And our conversation today will build us up for what's next. All right. So for everybody who joined our show today or the shows broken down, we're so glad you're here today. Love for you to, in the comment area, add something that stuck out to you. If you create something from this, an essay, maybe you draw something, tag one of us in it. Let us know that this is a continuation, that you're continuing the conversation somewhere else. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be amazing if someone tags us and like continues the conversation? Okay. Yeah. Casey Lee asked me, what is your idea of success? And I cheekily said, Elon Musk calling me and asking my opinion about something. But in all seriousness, when somebody, says, I want to continue a conversation that you guys started, that's success. So love for anyone listening today or watching us on YouTube, make a comment. Tell us about what you think. Tell us if this helped you. Let us know. DM us, let us know that this made an impact on your life. And most of all, just share it with somebody that you think is gonna benefit from it. That would just make it all extra creative, extra art.
I believe that you don't complete circle of creativity until you share what you've made.
I love that. Hey, everyone, you just finished listening to the Bold Perspectives podcast with our amazing Dr. Psychiatrist out in Scotland, Dr. Ayomide today. And it was a real treat. And we are really privileged to have you on the show today and contribute to our minds and to our future selves. So thank you. Well, that's it for today's show. We covered a lot of very interesting aspects about culture and dance and therapy, and took the professions of both my friend and who I kind of think is in a way a colleague, because we just do psychiatry differently. I did it through taxes, and he does it in a more clinical way. But both ways definitely gave us insight into human behavior, as well as gave us opportunities to help build into other people. So I'm so glad that he joined us today, and I'm glad that all of you joined us today for a wonderful time to just really connect with our thoughts and how we can look at the world in a better way. Thanks again. I'm Samantha Postman, and this is the Bold Perspectives podcast.
Thanks for listening to Bold Perspectives with Samantha Postman. We'd love to hear which insights added value to your life or the lives of others. To help support the podcast, please share the love on social media. Leave a rating or a review. If you don't want to miss out on exclusive content, sign up for her personal email letters. Check out Samantha's website at samanthapostman.com. Follow her on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Thanks for your amazing support. We'll see you again. And remember, you are meant to live a better and bolder life.